So I ended my stream a couple hours ago, and there's been a lot of new stuff added to the season one, and a few changes that change the season one leveling guide. So I want to give you an updated one and how I kind of got to level 38 within about 5 to 6 hours, which isn't any record, but it is still pretty solid. Now, the first big change that they made was the 1 to 20 process, where a lot of us suggested to kind of run in the open world somewhere, or just kind of getting to that initial level to start farming dungeons. What you'll notice in the beginning of the game when you create a new character is that everywhere around the map is actually level equal to you. Even like, let's say, the areas over here like Kyrgyzstan or Hawazar. So the dungeons in there are actually the same level as you when you start out, which really changes things. So when you start out, my first suggestion would be to immediately go and run blind burrows starting at level 1. This is actually a really nice way to get some massive XP. I did not recommend blind burrows previously because it actually required level 35, so that's why we went for Champion's Demise or open world activities. And you could just run blind burrows for the first 20 or so levels on repeat. Now, there's a few things with this. Depending on what build you are running, you could actually benefit from the seasonal journey, because this does unlock a few things, such as like herbs and some really interesting aspects. For example, the rogue one is actually really good. So I actually did finish the season journey within my level 1 to 20 process, if your class does have a good aspect within some of these, because you can see here on the second seasonal journey chapter, the druid actually has an amazing shockwave aspect for the pulverized build that you potentially could use. So depending on that, you can go for the season journey in the initial 20 levels. Also, for most classes, excluding the necromancer, you're going to want to finish your class specialization within that first 20 levels. For the rogue, it's a very simple process over here. Also, lastly, within that 1 to 20 process, you're going to want to look for any build defining aspects, because you don't really want to do it really early, because you generally need a few veiled crystals in order for you to equip them, and you're not going to get enough veiled crystals until around level 15 to 20, depending on what you're running, because you need the rare items to salvage. So around level 15 with the rogue specialization, I did finish that Jalal's Vigil to go ahead and pick up my Blade Dancer aspect, but that's only for the rogue. Again, any build defining aspect that you're going to go for any class, that is when you're going to want to do it. Even things like the aspect of disobedience or the aspect of might can be very useful for survivability later on into the game. And then we dive into what changed a little bit as well, which is the 20 to kind of 45 process. In fact, maybe even to like the level 43 process, and that is repeating the exact same Temple of Ra here over and over again. Now, this is something that we all kind of knew was going to be happening, but this is something that, well, I've just been running over and over again, literally since 20. Like, I've done nothing else, and this is a lot sooner than I otherwise would have, but I wanted to test it out with the new patch. And you can do it at level 20. It is a lot trickier. Before, we had the nerfs, it was a lot easier. But you could do it at level 20, and you will get massive XP rates if you're able to do it quickly. I will put up on screen here a little route that you can run so you can do it a little bit more efficiently. Now, with the rogue, there's actually a trick where you can actually teleport over this wall right here, so you don't actually have to walk all the way around. This is really nice. Some other classes could do this as well. For example, if you're playing Sorcerer, you can actually TP over this wall. If you're playing Barb, I don't know if you can. You might be able to leap over. I don't think so, but actually, I do think so. I believe you can leap over this with that. So there are some options for some other classes. Necromancer and Druid, I don't believe, have any option to get over this wall. So little quick trick for you all to get a little bit of time shaved off this run. And it will matter, because shaving off 5 seconds on a 105 110 second run, and you're running it 100 times, that's going to add up a lot. Okay, this is literally what you're going to be doing all the way until you enter into World Tier 3, in which case things change once again. But there are some other options that you could do. They actually really encourage PvP zones lately. And if there's not a lot of people in your zones, then you can run PvP zones. They're actually really solid for the, in general, just overall leveling process. But as soon as you enter World Tier 3, things change once again. Now you'll notice here, when I actually hover over my jewelry, I do have some of the hearts actually slotted in. And this is where I first suggest you actually go through and do the Season 1 quest. You'll notice that when you start off the game, there's going to be these little like leaf green quests. And when you complete them, you'll start to unlock the workbenches and things like that. Well, when you enter into World Tier 3, the actual hearts scale up with you, and they provide armor, okay? And the armor scales to the item power of the heart. This is where I suggest you actually go for it. Either just before World Tier 3, so you can actually give little upgrades so that you can actually enter into World Tier 3, or just after World Tier 3, so you can potentially get higher item power ones. That's what I'm going to be doing, because these are going to be higher armor, and also they actually give you really insane stats or effects. For example, this one right here, which I found to be absolutely excellent. This Devious Heart gives me a chance to knock back with my marksman skills or slow with my cutthroat skills. Now this activates, a lot of things where I can get consistent slows off my cutthroat skills, give me extra CC damage, etc., things like that. But the knockback on the marksman skills actually allows me to permanently CC elites in a lot of situations, or just add a lot of CC break bar damage to bosses that might be a little bit longer. So I've found these to be really excellent. There's some resource generation ones. There's some other ones that you can get for very easily. I wouldn't specifically farm them, but getting a couple of them in order to slot them into your jewelry is going to be a really nice upgrade as soon as you enter World Tier 3. And then you're going to transition that into, guess what? Either you can actually repeat more strongholds, you can actually do dungeons, but now's the time for nightmare dungeons. Another thing that you could also do, because doing nightmare dungeons, some of them require you to kind of use and do strongholds, because some of the dungeons are actually locked behind strongholds. Getting the first couple of renown points are actually really nice to do. They actually buffed up the renown for side dungeons and side quests, so you can actually get the third point of renown very easily. And if you haven't already, when you enter into World Tier 3, this is an excellent time to do it, because they did buff the Tree of Whispers. Now, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a deeper dive when I do enter that to determine whether or not Tree of Whispers is actually really excellent. But it is buffed, and it was already decent, not terrible, and it is worthwhile because you want to pick up the renown. Now, obviously, you want to do it in the areas that you don't have the renown unlocked already, but I recommend definitely going for these first couple of skill points, because it will only take you around like 20-30 minutes per zone if you haven't already claimed it, because some of these are already kind of done as you're going through. And like if you're doing the waypoint unlocks in your Temple of Rot, you're probably going to be unlocking potentially some of these earlier. Or for me, I did a lot of Skosglen because, well, I had to pick up waypoints along the way for Jalal's Vigil. So depending on what class you are, you might have more accomplished, but picking up this third round for the extra skill points is really going to help you out as you enter into World Tier 3. And of course, nightmare dungeons. That's pretty much the name of the game when you enter into those higher world tiers. Then we consider World Tier 4 as we enter, which is around level 60 to 100. And there is one major thing that has changed, and that is these invokers. You'll unlock these invokers as you level up and do various things, particularly when you're farming random dungeons. I didn't find many of these when I was doing the Temple of Rot spam. So you'll probably pick these up most likely as you enter into World Tier 3 and you start to do other content. And these actually give you an option to kind of open up and unlock additional hearts in the malignant tunnels. Okay, so you can see here, you have to find powerful malignant enemies with a matching invoker. You'll notice that as you go through and do some of these dungeons, you can actually use these invokers for a higher level and the ability to kind of farm these hearts. I do recommend actually doing and using up your invokers, at least a few of them, when you enter into World Tier 4, similar to World Tier 3, although I would kind of keep your invokers for World Tier 4. And that's mainly because, well, again, these scale. So when you get into World Tier 4, you have the potential chance to unlock a lot of the very maximum item power hearts, which will be endgame viable builds. So this is the time to use them. And then guess what? We're going to be running back into Nightmare Dungeons for the remainder of the process. pretty straightforward, honestly. The real main change is the addition of the seasonal quests and the kind of level, I guess you could say, equalization that they did in the very, very early game, because those two things are things that were changed with the season 1 patch. But overall, the general strategy remains the same, and if you had decided to follow the initial leveling strategy that I mentioned in a previous video, well, you'll be totally fine. It's still going to be very good. We're talking about the difference between maybe 10, 15, 20% of potential levels, which do matter for those people that are, really dedicated. And so I wanted to give you guys my kind of process so far and how I've been, getting on in the season 1. Hopefully you're enjoying. I'll probably have a video talking about my feelings on season 1 so far, because although there has been a lot of backlash for season 1, and I do think that the patch wasn't that great, I've actually had a really fun time unlocking the hearts, doing the season journey, leveling up once again. So yeah, I've just been having a fun time. Thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know what your thoughts are in season 1, and of course, hopefully you're leveling up pretty quickly. Thanks for watching. See you all for the next one.